Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Lucifer, Season 2, Episodes 3 and 4. Man, was Episode 3 good. Just one of those, out of all the episodes so far, I feel like Season 1, Episode 12 was a really fun episode. And now I think Episode 3 has got to be like top 5 easily. One of my favorite episodes. Just because like it had an interesting way of people getting killed, like it was kind of getting back at them for something that they had done through a video of all things, a wobble video. And so I just thought, I was like, man, that episode felt so cool. And then we turn around and we have episode 4 that actually is a pretty decent episode also. Kind of has this like guys night out, ladies night kind of episode, which now we have to go on and have Chloe on her side eventually kind of deal with her partying, and then Dan on his side deal with his partying, and both of them have kind of like the same joke of just like, well, hey, like I guess you had a fun night. Of like, yeah, I guess you did too. So really in episode 3 we have Lucifer with just a lot of like jokes where he has to go on and be like, oh, I guess you can call me very distinguished now. Like, and then episode 4 we have like, it seems at some points we do have Lucifer who has like certain themes of certain episodes. Not every episode, but it feels that every once in a while they have him like be fixated on something, or it feels they're like, we had the one episode where he goes on and talks on and on and on about his mother, or mother issues, or whatever, daddy issues, and all these things. And so now we have in episode 4 where Lucifer is very distracted to the point of him going on and speaking with his therapist, and obviously there is a moment where Lucifer doesn't even have time for Linda. He's just going on like, ooh, gummy bears. Like, hey, this. Oh, juggling. Oh. Just trying to avoid problems, or just trying to really like have fun with these episodes. So with that said, let's go into the cryptic talking upon these episodes, because we normally have to do that. So go out of your way to see these episodes because they're actually good. It doesn't feel like filler. Finally, well, like, again, like there's some decent episodes, but like I thought that these were actually like worthwhile watching. So let's worth our while. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to go on and be able to kind of remember certain characters and so on and so forth, because that's usually the huge normal problem. It was kind of interesting to go through these episodes, because it was like, okay, like we have to play the game of like, okay, why does this person look so familiar within these 2 episodes? And we have in episode 3 like this guy that looked so like familiar to me. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, like I've seen this guy before, and I guess he was like their PR guy. And I was like, okay, who is this guy? The guy who plays Ray Godfrey. And I was like, where is he from? And then all of a sudden I looked through the IMDb. I'm like, oh, he was in Chuck. I'm like, I remember seeing Chuck. I'm like, yeah, like, the end of the day, also, if people want me to see Chuck, maybe I'll go on and check that out. That was a fun, like, I'm not really, like, I don't really like spy stuff, but I feel like Chuck was, like, a fun show, even though, again, it was, like, spy and James Bond like stuff, and I'm not much of that kind of person. But every once in a while, I would see an episode of Chuck and be like, this might be fun. So, and then in episode 4, we have a bartender that I'm like, why does this guy look so familiar to me? And I'm like, oh, like the bartender guy, which I'll talk about when we get into the role of stuff within the next episode. Yeah, like the bartender guy, I'm like, where, like, and this guy like had really drastically changed the way he looked. But I'm like, where have I seen this guy before? I'm like, oh yeah, like he was on the Reaper show. And I think when I went on and I saw like stuff through like the Reaper, I think I saw that like I think that this same guy was on Lucifer. So I was like, oh yeah, like there was the connection that I completely forgot about. But anyways, enough talking about other shows. Let's go on and talk about this one. Cryptic like sense. What are these episodes about? So in episode 3, we go on here and we have a person who is punishing people for a video that had went viral. So we have this to go into a nth degree of the ultimate punishment for some viral crime. And so we go on and have somebody going around and killing people based on the prank that they were to pull, or uh, the video that they were to put out that was to go on and shame a person of which that eventually, one way or the other, we are to think it's like, oh well, it has to be that person who is to go on and do it, and come to find it's someone else entirely. Episode 4, men's night out. Really, that's to kind of seal the deal here. And we also go on and we have Lucifer, who within these episodes is to figure out what to do with Charlotte. And so Charlotte is trying to understand how she can be incorporated back into the world. And as well as also we have a case of which that has to deal with a multiple sorority girls who are to have gotten poisoned, and we then go on and have us figure out who the killer could have possibly been. So with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into the double 5 time territory. Let's just go into spoilers about this one at the end of the day. Let's double 5. It's about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time we get spoiled this episode. I don't know, like, it also feels to me like these episodes, they felt very Castle-esque, weirdly. I think more than likely, every once in a while, because, like, if there's a detective show, like, I always have to compare it to Castle, but, like, this one presents itself to basically be, like, a similarity to that show. But anyways, let's go into spoilers. So hopefully I'm going to be getting names correctly, because there's a whole bunch of hodgepodge about names being thrown around in these episodes, and I'm just like, I'm just trying to follow the bouncing ball here. So we have a guy, I believe his name is Nicholas Sands, who is to be doing a video going on and like asking for forgiveness for his crimes. And so what it seems that we are to find here, that someone was to go on and wax up Nicholas, and was to wax him up right by his twig and berries, his junk, his nethers. So why can't you just say manhood? Yeah, I know. Why can't he just say the big flopping thing right down below? I don't know. And because curse words and YouTube videos and heaven forbid. So this man is his nuts is roasting by an open fire, and sadly. And so this guy burns alive, but his nuts started the fire, so to speak. So they go on in the aftermath of going and seeing this video about this guy who's very remorseful for all the things that he's gone and done. And so they go on and they find him, and they realize that there's like this waxy residue, of course, that can possibly be like traced to crayons, because Ella is to be on the knowledge of character of such. So we go on and they're trying to figure out, like, okay, like, so where did they go for? And yeah, like they went for the downtown Georgia Brown, no place. So reference from earlier episodes. So they're going on, and we just consistently have Lucifer, who's like wanting to grab into that area just to tease at it, just like and Chloe's like, do not touch that man's area, avoiding cuss words. So they're going on and they're trying to like figure out like, well, like who could be the culprit here? Like, how would this make sense? Could this have anything to do with a prior relationship, like a crime of passion? So all of a sudden we go on and we have both Lucy and Chloe, the loose in the loose deck, yeah, because Decker and Lucifer, the loose deck, that's not gonna work as a name, anyways. Going on, they go and see a girl named Lila Sims, and immediately, like, I'm thinking for some odd reason, I thought that eventually this girl was probably going to be the killer in this episode. I didn't remember this episode. I think I remembered episode 4 more than I did episode 3. Like, none of this was like really familiar to me, but episode 4 I was like, okay, the beginning of this looks familiar, and then like bits and pieces about it, I was like, okay, this seems like familiar to me for some goofy reason. But so they go on and they meet with Layla Sims, and it seems that she was to have this text that, of course, was to be on her previous employee's thing, phone, whichever. And so, and really, I just want to be so focused on the case besides everything else, because I know, like, we have a bunch of, like, Charlotte stuff that we kind of have to deal with, but I'm like, I just would rather table all of that. So, but we do have like Trixie, and we have Dan, who's kind of giving her cake, just like, hey, I'm sorry, Trixie, here's some cake. She's like, all right. So we have Loose Deck, who goes on, this will never stick, and they go to Sims, and Sims is to mention that I guess this guy had released photos of the both of them together because technically they were lovers, but she wanted to hide it because, of course, this is like a boss employee, like you can't have relationships in the workplace kind of thing. I'm like, come on, like this is like a nothing job. Like this, well, no, that's not true. Like it's just like a job where it's like, really, you guys have like professional, like, this is like watching over YouTube videos and just trying to Like, come on, really? Like, I wouldn't say that that'd be like a really like professional like, oh, you can't date your coworkers. Really? They should have casual, everyday attire. So Sims like is to go on and mention that they had these photos being released, but like Sims was never going to go on and kill this guy, and it seems that there was like possibly some alibi for this girl's whereabouts. So they go on, and we have Lucifer and we have Chloe that make it back to the office. For Lucifer to find out that Charlotte at some point is to make it to the office also. And Lucifer is like, well, hey, like, you shouldn't be out here because, like, this girl hasn't been, like, reintegrated, uh, like, back into, like, society. And so we have Chloe that's rattling off all of the resume of Charlotte to say that she was a previous cop, that now she's a lawyer, and so like Charlotte is talking to all these detectives, and so Chloe leaves. Lucifer pulls Charlotte aside, and he's like, "Well, hey, like you shouldn't be going off and doing this because like a Amenadiel is gonna grab you and take you back to hell, and like yeah, like I like Lucifer is immediately thinking that there's going to be so many problems here. And at the very beginning of this episode, we go on and we have Lucifer who is trying to pour wax over a woman for him to get interrupted by his mother who's like, "Oh, like it looks like you're both having some fun." And Lucifer is like, "Well, yeah, like boundaries, mother, boundaries." And he goes on and he has like whipped cream and like a it looked like a cleaning utensil, and like Charlotte is just like, well, I just want to like be around you and I want to go on and like see what you do. And like Lucifer is like, well, yeah, but like not this kind of do. No. So and I'm paraphrasing here hugely, but it is what it is. So we have Charlotte that goes on, and after she's like done like talking with Lucifer, and like Charlotte wants to go on and also like re-meet up with Amenadiel anyways, just to kind of talk to him. And so later on in the episode, we have Charlotte who's to, I guess, get out of the shower and be very toweled. I'm like, man, these women just like really have like really next to nothing on into these episodes. Man, how like uncomfortable can they probably make some people to just be like, man, can I just like, can I wear normal clothes when I come into the work? But anyways, but when really also thinking about it, like with these people that have to have their bodies at like a certain look and certain whatever, it's like might as well show it off anyways. So, but Charlotte is to at some point uh, get to see uh, Amenadiel, and so Charlotte is to confront Amenadiel about possibly him wanting to go on and bringing her back to hell. And so Amenadiel, while Charlotte continues to talk about her trying to be with Lucifer, but Lucifer like wants nothing to do with her, and we of course have like Charlotte that's asking Amenadiel, it's like, well, are you a good son and stuff like that. And so the more and more that Charlotte starts to talk, the more Amenadiel is like, Mom? And then Charlotte's like, yeah. So they hug it out, and at some point we have a Amenadiel who's like, well, no, I'm not just going to drag her back to hell because Amenadiel can't do that anyways. We have it where Amenadiel is to be sulking his woes in his office and is pouring this wine that all of a sudden is pausing, not pausing, pausing, not pausing, and then he goes on to re-meet up with Maze, and they have a little chit chat. So, of which the chit chatting, I'm not quite sure exactly what that all was about. But I know Amenadiel goes off with Linda, and at some point of these episodes, I think it's probably 4. Amenadiel is going with Linda and mentioning that um, he has things that aren't working as they should, and that he's talking about his he can't perform and all this kind of stuff, and Linda's just well, that happens over time. And so Linda is thinking that Amenadiel can't get it up, and Amenadiel's no, in his head Amenadiel's no, I don't have my wings aren't working, I don't have wings, maybe you should drink some Red Bull. It's a joke. So, I have to say it's a joke. Anyways, pushing on. So within episode 3, we go on and we have another crime that is to be struck. Come to find out, we have a guy who is to be tied up all sawed and he's chained up with his hands dangling, and he's full of apples, whole apples within his throat, and I'm oh my god, that is so horrifically cool. But then I'm but wait a minute, after you went on and put the first apple down this guy's gullet, wouldn't he have choked and died anyways? Or did they just consistently keep just bashing all these apples through in one fell swoop of a thing? And so this guy was choking on all these apples and choking to death. And so he's wearing this school outfit, and so we go on and find that I guess there had been some video that had gotten released of these two going at it, I guess without the permission of the woman who is to have this kind of gag and get kind of slapped from behind. So we have Chloe that's immediately thinking that this is a serial killer, and so that these have to be connected. So they're possibly thinking that this is to be this school, this school girl or this school teacher, because of course that's what's tied to this other case. But really they realized it's well, it has no tie to the first case, the Nicholas case. So really there has to be some kind of connection somehow or another. So we then go on and have them try to figure out okay, these videos are to be seen by some people and to be flagged by them. And so Lucifer and Chloe make their way to meet up with the people that are to kind of flag certain videos and to take them down, but they still see these things and are to adjust accordingly at this wobble internet site. As if this is YouTube, but hey, we don't want to say it's YouTube because reasons, copyright reasons or whatever, or making a certain internet thing be in a bad light. Because you could probably go on and be Castaway, where you can slap a logo and whatever on things. You could have FedEx be a part of a film, and there is no sponsorship. But like, I guess if you're like saying, "Oh, YouTube is part of is like supposedly a part of some murder scandal," then looks a little shady. So I don't know. Um, like you, like YouTube people kill people. No, that could get people sued. So we go on, and Lucifer is looking at all these videos, and Lucifer's like, oh my god, like if I ever go back to hell, like I want like this feed from these videos to just kind of see what all they're flagging and everything like that, because these are the better videos of all these things. And yeah, I just went on and watched like some guy who was to go on and say that I guess YouTube videos are getting like flagged for like 18 plus videos if you go on and you have like certain violent acts that are really just to be like because this guy had gotten flagged for it, and I was like, oh, that's too bad. This guy was to mention that he was to see some like funniest videos compilation, and evidently one person was to kind of like fall off this treadmill, and he like ha 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 ha, this is great. But then all of a sudden it ended up getting flagged on YouTube as like, oh well, like this is too violent, and like it's gonna be like 18 plus. It's like, really, come on. I think there's just a lot of YouTube videos that I think like weirdly it doesn't make sense uh to eventually get flagged the way it does. And it's always like something like very like ridiculously simple. It's like, oh well, basically don't have a woman in your thumbnails or your photos or images or whatever. Like, because basically like don't even like try to risk it. Like, just show a dude and he'll be wearing a Speedo and you'll be fine. But, like, going on and, like, showing a woman anywhere, like, I don't know how many times that I had problems with just straight up, like, any kind of, like, cleavage whatsoever, any kind of just, like, skin of a woman, like, immediately, like, the thumbnail would get taken down or, like, a video would get flagged. Something. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, I was surprised that X, the movie that I reviewed, got like the thumbnail is still there. Like, I was assuming like, oh my god, it's gonna get taken down immediately and whatever and all that garbage. Um, and I would have to go on and like conveniently figure out a way to cover up cleavages and stuff like that, because otherwise the thumbnail would get taken down. And I'm like, god, like doing all of this extra work just to cleverly like hide something that I shouldn't have to hide, because freaking everybody and their brother, like, look at a number of women and men. Women go on and have like cleavage in every single one of their thumbnails, even if it's not the clothes they're actually wearing. It's cleavage all over the place. And then you go on, you have like certain guys that go on and have these big, huge, lavish muscles, and so they like plethora the thumbnails with like, oh yeah, well I'm doing this and I'm shirtless. Like, shouldn't that be like the one thing that YouTube should just go on and go after those people? Because that's some shady garbage. That also, like, not everyone can do. Not everybody's muscular. Not everybody is to like be as cleavaged as certain people. But anyways, heaven forbid I say even the word of something. That's YouTube for you. If you're a muscular person or you got some cleavage, you might as well show it, so that way you can go on and get like huge views. If you want to go on and be on the YouTube channel. But moving on. I said my piece. We don't care. Great. Moving on. So we have Lucifer that's going on and enjoying these videos. And so we have it where now they're trying to figure out, like, okay, well, like maybe it could be any number of these people that are having to forcibly watch these videos. and maybe like one of them finally snapped. Maybe something deep dark down inside of them is just brewing inside. And Lucifer's like, "Oh my God, Chloe." Good grief, Chloe. Man, something's brewing inside of you, Chloe. So Lucifer goes on and is to realize, like, well, wait a minute. Like, it seems like there's a number of people here. They're doing these videos that are all kind of happy, sunshine. Everybody has hope of things working out. Like, there's a Destiny's Child reunion thing, and there's this guy who is to like this and that, and so on and so forth. Like, I think all of these people are kind of really very hopeful people, and like they're not thinking they're going to get caught anytime soon with a crime. So they go on and ask one of the guys who's like monetizing, or what is the right word here? Uh, like censoring, like whatever anybody puts out, like going through and analyzing. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. Analyzing or assessing any videos that may need to be banned or taken down or whatever. So they go on and ask this analyzer guy, like, well, hey, like, who all has kind of been working here besides all you all going and watching these videos? And so the thing goes right back to Sims, the girl from before, and I was like, oh, okay, so she should be the murderer now, right? Come to find out, when they go on and they try to track down Sims, they think that she's the murderer, but then all of a sudden they see this video and they kind of crop the video, and they notice that Sims is going on and having this internet thing that says Judgment Day, and they're like, whoa, what's going on here? So they're kind of assessing that now, like, Sims is to be the villain, and that she's going to now, like, do herself in because she has to have her own judgment. But then they crop the video of Sims coming in here, and they realize that she's doing everything at gunpoint. It's like, oh, like, there has to be someone else into all of this. So they now are trying to figure out where Sims is in this office, and they get to this one place where it's all of these servers. Which, if a lot of you were to have gone on and seen the Ryan Reynolds movie Free Guy, same kind of room. And we have Lucifer, who was mentioning, like, well, yeah, like, if you take a couple of flashing lights down, like, this is basically hell. So Lucifer goes on with Chloe to see that Sims is to do a video, like, hey guys, I have to go on and I'm punished. I'm Judgment Day and all this and that, you know? So we have Sims who's pouring this gasoline on herself, which I hope it's not actually gasoline, it's probably water. Because more like, I don't know, I think it would immediately be water. Because I think, like, isn't gas, like, to me, I don't think that gas is like a clear liquid. I think it's more of like a yellowish, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever seen gas. I've had gas this morning. I didn't see it, but I had it. Anyways. We're going all kinds of places in this review. My apologies, but I'm having fun. So, Sims is to pour what is to be assumed water on herself. And so we find out that the villain of this story is to be none other than the PR guy. The guy who is to mention it's like, well, hey, like, all these people have to be punished for all these things that were to go on and be the wrongdoing. Because we had also Nicholas's case that was to have Sims show a video of a guy named Tom Smith, who was to have gone on and had a video where Nicholas is to light a match under like people's like shorts, and Tom was to get up and to kind of fan himself off, and they assumed that Tom might have been the culprit, or Tommy might have been the culprit, my bad. And so they question him, and the further and further that they talk about it, like Tommy is mentioning that he, like, this guy deserves what he had gotten because of like that went viral, that went all over the company, and like really just made him look horrible. And like at first he's to confess the crime, but come to find out he wasn't the culprit at all. It was Ray, the PR guy, mentioning that like these guys are to get their just desserts because of all like the things that they have done. And I'm like, man, I liked this episode just so much, because when really thinking about it, when you go on, like, you go and do these compilations where you're just like laughing at other people's agony and pain and whatever, and like the try not to laugh things, and to think about it, it's like, man, like how like we can go on and just be like, oh, you're laughing at other people's like misfortune and stuff like that. And like I can see how like we can go on and do something like this where it's like, well, yeah, like these people need to be punished for like the permission that they weren't given to put these things out there. And like it wasn't a bit, it wasn't something orchestrated. It was just a thing that was to go on and hurt someone's like feelings, or hurt someone's like uh basically life. So anyways, Ray is talking to Lucifer as like Lucifer is to be going on and being the distraction, as Chloe is to go and find a lever to like use as a like a big massive fire extinguisher to like spray down on both Lucifer and both Ray. And so they can go on and have of course uh them not to be able to go on and kill Sims here. And so they kind of take care of business. And so Charlotte, we have Lucifer, who is to go on and push the fact that Lucifer finally wants Chloe to go back to her normal life. And, or did I say Chloe there? Lucifer wants Charlotte to go back to her normal life with her family and stuff like that. And Charlotte is like, well, wait a minute, like I would have to go on and like I have to go and like deal with my husband and like and the kids. And Lucifer's like, well, yeah, like you have to go on and just deal with all of that, because like I want you to go back and just be like a part of Earth, just stay here. So, and that'll be her punishment. So we have Chloe and we have Dan. And so finally Chloe and Dan have this kind of heart-to-heart moment where Chloe's confessed that she is to like be thinking about kind of like what Dan has done, and like Dan is to go on and be like on everybody's crap list, and that he's like the lowest man on the totem pole. And so Chloe's like, well, yeah, like I think I've gone on and I've been far too hard on you, because of course Chloe and Dan are to supposedly go with Trixie to this like this outing, this vacation. And so Chloe's to mention, it's like, well, like before I was thinking like maybe we shouldn't go on this, but then Chloe is to kind of come around, and Dan is like, well, no, maybe maybe you were right before. Maybe it's finally time to like just move on, because it seems that Dan is no longer ready to want to just kind of like uh possibly work through this or whatever, and like it feels like they've just kind of been separated for far too long, to where Dan is just finally like, you know what, like let's call a spade and let's just get divorced finally. So in the next episode, everyone's distracted, but I'll get to that in a second here, or in a couple of minutes here, because we also have Chloe keep getting Charlotte and Chloe confused, son of a bitch. Hence, when you have names that almost are to have like the beginning of similar. So Charlotte's going on and making her way back to her home, and she's get mugged. And so Charlotte goes on and takes this guy, and is like, "Well, hey, I'll give you what you want. I'll give you the money." And so we have Charlotte that's just so done with this guy that she just flings him, and this guy like goes back a good decent, probably like 20 yards or something, and like smacks onto this wall, and now like there's blood on the wall, and this guy is probably dead from probably head impact to this wall. Must not have had a thick head. So this guy dies, and then Charlotte's like, like I guess there is a benefit to being on Earth. And she doesn't say that, but it's like, she has like kind of like, So she walks off. So really, I think that covers most of this episode. Probably not all in total, but in a very roundabout way, I had to kind of go back to that Tommy stuff because I completely was oblivious about it. But anyways, let's go on into episode 4 to kind of cover all that. So in episode 4, we have Lucifer, who is very distracted, and so Lucifer in this episode is to be kind of on his cell phone, kind of playing this word game, and is to go on into Linda's session, and like Lucifer is just kind of very worried about what's all going to go on, because Amityville is kind of telling Lucifer, it's like, well, hey, like thinking about it, like, are we going against God by having like Mother just kind of stay on Earth? And Lucifer's like, nah, like I think we'll be fine. So all of a sudden Lucifer is to be very distracted and is to have his cell phone in, of course, Linda's office, and so he's like scattering around, and I'm trying to think of what all happens all in this episode. Oh yeah, like I'm trying to think of all the stuff that happens. So Lucifer goes on and is talking to Linda, and he's eating these gummy bears, and he's playing with these balls and that she has. So Linda is to go on and say, it's like, well, hey, like, Lucifer, it feels like you're very distracted, and like, are you just trying to avoid all your problems? And she's kind of doing that in kind of a very cryptic way, but Lucifer is to kind of take like the cliff notes of it and just be like, wait a minute, like I can go on and distract myself and avoid all my problems. And Linda's like, well, like, that's what you're doing, but I don't, like, no. And Lucifer's like, no, like, thank you. Thank you, Linda. I'm going to get out of here and just continue to just distract away. As, of course, Lucifer is to find out that he has a case, of course, another case. Because in the beginning of this episode, in the very beginning, we have two guys going off in the woods to try to find this drone, and we have one guy saying to the other, "It's like, meh, like, dude, like you crushed my drone." So they go on and they find their drone, and then they find a body also, and they're like, "Dude." So come to find out, we had these two sorority girls who were to go to this club that had this certain like marker, and Chloe is trying to figure out what that marker was, and so we have Chloe that is very, very focused on work in this episode, so much so that while Lucifer is at his club, excuse me, uh, going and doing like his like job at this club and talking to Maze, we have Chloe that interrupts him and it's like, well, hey, like maybe you can go on and use your connections to call around to kind of see if like where this club is at. And Lucifer is like, yeah, like I'll get right on that. Like, like Lucifer is just so busy. And then when Chloe's like, work, 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 Lucifer is just like, God, Maze, can you just go on and just give her like a night out on the town so she can just be like me and Chloe have just spent too much time together. And Lucifer isn't getting any benefit out of that, so to speak. Anyways, so we go on in this episode, and uh, Maze is kind of already like irritated with Charlotte, and so much so that, oh, I know exactly what Maze goes on and is to speak to Menadiel about Lucifer's uh, Lucifer's new girl that he's with, and Maze wants Amityville to deal with her, and that was the conversation that they had in the last episode. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it all was about. So, and we also had that one, the one thing where Lucifer was also griping about like a new woman in his life, and Chloe's like, oh yeah, I know about exes, and like I know about uh like girls and stuff like that, and like having a new like having a new relationship or whatever. And Lucifer's like, no, it's not that at all. No. So, and Chloe ends up in episode 4. She goes on and does like a Lucifer impression, which kind of feels very spot on. But honestly, when you probably go on and spend a lot of time with certain people, or you've kind of gone on and done a plethora of episodes, like an impression does kind of eventually make sense when you go through a number of these people, and they probably all have like their own impressions of whoever any of these people were. So we go on into this episode, and we find out that these two girls are sorority girls, and they were to have gone to this club. And so they at first end up going to a girl named Lily that was to be their friend. And so it seemed that they talked to this girl, and it kind of led them to nowhere. So eventually they went on to continue to figure out where this exclusive club is. And so Chloe goes to this bar, as well as no wait, as Dan is to also go to this club, but like we have Chloe going to the bar, and then it leads to Dan going to this club. So because we had a guy the ninth inning, late in the day. My apologies. I'm just like I'm kind of one of those going on right now. My bad. So Chloe is to go to this club after speaking with this guy who is to be Davis, who it seems this guy is to go on and be this kind of cooker, or like he's a butcher. It looks like he's a butcher, and also he has this kind of interesting garden of sorts. Um, and so Lucifer is to seemingly be familiar with this guy, and so at some point it seems like this guy is to have this kind of infidelity thing about him, where all of a sudden his wife just runs off. It's like, oh, like you cheated on another woman? Davis is like, no, I've done nothing like that at all. And it's like, oh, no, no, no. Like, we're just like trying to figure out this case. And they were thinking that Davis was tied to it. And it's like, no, like I was busy. I was like, I have an alibi. And so they're like, oh, okay. All right. So Chloe goes to this bar because Maze is to push, of course, him to go to this, or Maze is to push Chloe to go to this bar. So Chloe goes on, and eventually, the whole entire time she's at this bar, she's questioning people, she's trying to figure out things, and all of a sudden, Linda comes in, and she's also like, "Well, hey, like, no, like, um, she's trying to be like the person who's to really explain what a girls' night really is, and because like we have Ella that just kind of shows up and she's like, "Hey, like I just came here for the drinks," and like cuz Ella is to not be all that familiar with town, and so she's like trying these new restaurants, and she's going on and like trying to like figure out like where are the places to be, and like Lucifer is telling Ella, it's like, "Well, hey, like come to Lux and I'll kind of like I'll give you the treatment, or I'll treat you right." So we have Chloe with all these women, and so Linda has mentioned like that these things are to just talk about like secrets or get something off your chest or something like that. So we find out, I guess, that Linda was to go on and do a very interesting career before this in the phone business, and we find out, of course, that like that Maze is to be the demon from hell, and of course Ella, God, what was her thing? Uh, oh, she used to steal cars, and then Chloe is to mention, it's like, well, yeah, I'm just kind of dealing with maybe a little bit of a divorce, and they're like, oh, okay, so while they're having fun and getting drunk and everything like that, all of a sudden we have Chloe that is to realize there is a guy that has this club tattoo, and now she's kind of like calling this guy over, and all the girls are like, Chloe, no, like thinking that she's gonna hit on him. But Chloe's to see the tattoo on this guy, and so Chloe is questioning this guy, like, hey, where is this? Like, where is this tattoo from? And he's like, well, hey, like it's a club, it's a sex club, so, and it's only for men. And so Chloe's like, oh, okay. So, and of course we have this guy's wife that's kind of upset with somebody trying to steal her man, and then we end up getting into this big massive fight where Maze is having to like use these sticks and beat people down, and it's really kind of cool to see all these women just kind of slug it out and whatever, as like Linda is to call like the girl like you bitch. And because at first like Linda is to be like really nice, but then she switches into another, just like insulting this woman, and then like fight ensues. So so eventually Chloe's have this like gash on her head. So we of course have Dan, who is like, oh, hey, like you must have had a fun night. And Chloe, of course, is to know like the half hour exactly within the night before that she completely doesn't remember. And come to find out, Maze later on is to like mention that half an hour that Chloe doesn't remember, and that Maze was talking to Chloe about them like living together because Chloe is going to have to move out of her place and live somewhere else. So Chloe is gonna, I guess, live with Maze, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like the times where kind of Maze like was consistently doing things with Trixie a lot. But anyways, so pushing on. So we go from. I'm gonna have to pause here for 1 second. All right, now we're back. So Lucifer and Dan are to go on with Menadiel to this club. Because of course Chloe is to tell Dan, it's like, well, hey, like, since men are only like accepted to go into this club, you're gonna go to this club with Lucifer so that we can look less of a cop. Excuse me, and uh, Lucifer is to go on and bring a Menadiel to this because, of course, Menadiel is just kind of so worried and wrapped up about kind of the repercussions of the whole like God thing. And Lucifer's like, you know what? Like, I think you just need some distraction. Like, come on, like a Menadiel, like come with me, and like we'll just kind of party and kind of forget our worries. So they go on and they party into this club, and so Menadiel is getting so drunk. No, 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 no. That's what happens when you do a thing in the middle of the day. A million people want to call you. So popular, right? No, it's just some freaking 900 bajillion number saying, hey, yeah, you know the thing that you didn't do? You want to do that? No. Great. So, so they go into this club, and Amityville is getting very drunk, and to the point of him, like, almost getting, like, pass out drunk. So they at one point have to wake up Amityville, and Amityville pours this drink on Dan, and like Lucifer is like, oh my god, I wish I could have gotten that as a video. Like, wait, I still can. So, but while they go into this club, they immediately go and see this like bartender who I guess is pouring this kind of freezing uh, element, which I think is just kind of God, what is like? I want to say it's like nitroglycerin or something. Like it's like a colding thing of sorts. So they find out that possibly like that thing could be like the thing that the bartender is kind of pouring into these people's drinks, that could be a deadly thing. And so they question this bartender to just be like, well, hey, you killed these women the night before. And so Donovan's like, wait, whoa, what are you talking about? So we have it where like Donovan, who's the bartender, eventually is to turn to have uh, it be like Yuri, this guy who's to be this kind of very accented older gent who is to possibly be the culprit because I guess these girls had spent some time with this guy and it wasn't this bartender. It was like, oh no, like, hey man, like no, it wasn't me. So after this party, we have Dan who was to tell Chloe that, hey, like, go on and like you gotta go and meet up with this Yuri. And so Chloe's to go and meet up with him as I guess Yuri is a little hungover, and as soon as he gets out of this car, he's like, blah, and Lucifer's like, oh my god, not on the leather. I guess because his shoes are leathered. So Yuri is to, of course, like feel very hungover and very sick. And so Yuri is talking to them and is mentioning it's like, oh no, like I didn't want anything to do with any of these girls, but I guess Yuri was to, or I guess there was to be a photo taken that at some point we we see, and Lily is to be at this party, and she was to have this blonde wig. It's like, like why was she trying to be a completely different person? So they go on and they re-question Lily and come to find out, yeah, she was the murderer. And so we now have Lily, who is to grab this box cutter and is now threatening to kill Chloe here. And we go on and have Lucifer, who's getting a phone call, which distracts Lily, and then Chloe kind of takes advantage of this and is to go on and smack Lily with like some yoga mat that's kind of all balled up. So Chloe then goes on and handcuffs Lily and talks about girls' night because Chloe was to go on and find out that there was like a bid going on between Lucifer and Maze about the night before, and so Maze was to win this bet about being able to get Chloe drunk, and so Lucifer is like, oh, okay, like what do you want as your consolation prize? Do you want my car and something like that? And Mace is just like, well, no, like I want you to pour me a drink. Because of course, out of the number of times that Maze had poured Lucifer a drink, it's like, well, now Maze wants Lucifer to have to pour her a drink. So that's when all of a sudden Amenadiel comes in, and he, of course, is all hungover. And so we now have, of course, Lucifer and Amenadiel talking about the whole Lucifer thing of him like making a deal with God, where Lucifer is to hold Chloe's life with bringing back his mother back to hell. So, because I guess Chloe's life was in the balance at one point, and so Lucifer was to try to like revive her, but in the cost of like, well, like Lucifer had to go on and bring his mother back to hell. So Lucifer did not go on and do that, and so Amenadiel is telling like Lucifer now. It's like, well, wait a minute, like if you're not going to do what God wants you to do you think that God is going to go on and undo what he had done to save Chloe? And Lucifer's like, no, 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 no. I don't think like that at all. Like, I think, like, God's going to be fine with it. Like, I don't think anything's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Chloe ends up getting into a car accident by the end of the episode, and is like, oh, cliffhanger for next week. It's like, well, luckily for me, I can go on and watch the episodes whenever. But I'm just like, well, obviously, like, Chloe's not dead because seasons. because honestly, if you don't have Chloe and you don't have Lucifer, the show doesn't really work. So like they threaten to kill Chloe, but it's like it's obvious us that these characters are going to consistently be intertwined until the show is over. Like that's the thing that kind of sucks about like you eventually like watching a show that's being like a streaming thing or binge watch after the fact, because you immediately know it's like, well, Chloe's not going to die, but also like you already kind of know that Chloe's not going to die. Because look at like Yellowstone, when eventually Yellowstone just kills everybody off and just like, ooh, that's how we end the season. I'm like, bullshit. Like, none of these people are going to be dead. Like, if they're all going to do a whole entire season where every single one of these Yellowstone people are all going to be in heaven, then, like, I'll buy that. But, like, I can't for the life of me just think that everyone is going to be dead. That doesn't make any sense. Um, and so then we end up finding a whole entire season of them just kind of recouping from all of their supposed death moments or near death moments. And so I feel like this is like the same thing where it's like putting Chloe's life in the balance, but like to just kind of tease Lucifer, but like Chloe's not really going to be dead. So it's going to be like the one Supernatural episode where we have Sam and Dean who are living the same episode, Groundhog's Day, over and over and over again, and Sam is going to have to keep Dean alive for every single episode, or every single like day, and every single episode they come up with some way for Dean to die. Like every single time they go on, and he's like, well. Like, you know what? Like, does this hot dog taste weird to you? And then, like, Dean freaking croaks of a horrible hot dog. So, no matter what they do, like, Dean is to get, excuse me, he's to get, like, killed off. And then Sam comes to the realization, it's like, well, like there's nothing you can do but eventually realize that someday that either Sam or Dean himself is going to die. And so Sam has to kind of learn that lesson. So yeah, so that's kind of how like I thought about these episodes. Very roundabout way. My apologies, I'm just not really there. I was there possibly for a good portion of the third episode, but the fourth one I was like, because I'm just in the weeds here. Plus also just like more and more like the brain is just like mush every day. To the point I feel like I should go on and just give myself a day just to kind of recharge the batteries. But every single day I'm just thinking, like, yeah, I'm gonna go on and just give myself some relief. And then when I get to the very next day, it's like, oh hey, here's a movie I can do, here's a show I can do. Like I just consistently like pile on the work, and like that's the goofy thing about me. But also here's a goofy thing: I'm talking for far too long. My bad. It's been a while since I've gone on and done like a video where I've just like blabbed and blabbed and whatever. So with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Bye everybody. Bye everybody.